These are the people that ally with all of our enemies, our declared enemies, the people that have said they are enemies of America. Well, the woke right is no different. If their prescription, which is isolationism, actually was carried through to the degree that they are pushing it, we would live in a world where China and Iran and Russia were in control. Part of America exceptionalism was not only our Constitution and our love of the First Amendment and free speech, it's also the fact that these smaller democracies around the world who supported us could rely on us if they were aggressed upon by rogue nations.
All the way from DC, we have a very special guest on our show this week, Karys Rhea.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you, Fleur.
Well, welcome to the Quad Interviews. You have a really interesting story to tell. You're a producer for Epoch Times, and you've brought to light something that we should all be very concerned about, and that's why I'm so thrilled that you came in to talk with us about it. And that is something which I think you or other people have coined the woke right. And it is the anti-Israel sentiment that we see or have seen in the pro-Trump camp. So first of all, tell us a little bit about how you began to see this phenomenon and why you're worried.
Right. Well, thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I first started seeing elements of this actually in 2022 from Candace Owens. And this was before
back then?
Yeah, this was before she had kind of outed herself as a pathological anti-Semite, if you will.
Yeah.
But she was coming to the defense of Kanye West. Remember that dude?
I remember that.
She was recklessly defending him from all charges of being a Jew hater. And I started to notice that in her defense of him, the tactics that she was using mirrored the same types of tactics that we saw on the woke. Things like resorting to identity politics, things like embracing a victimhood status, right? So I actually, like moral relativism, that was another thing that she was doing, which we always see on the postmodern left. So I actually wrote a long article about her in 2022 in White Rose magazine called Candace Owens Goes Woke.
Wow.
And then after October 7th, we saw these people kind of explode, right? And, you know, I've told people I'm so naive. I thought I coined this term, what woke right? And then I found out that all these other people had the same idea and they all thought they coined the term, right? So we were all kind of walking around just taking note of this ragtag group of people. And they're not all of them are friends. There's some infighting amongst them. They come from disparate groups. There's the groypers like Nick Fuentes and Jake Shields. There's the Christian nationalists like Candace Owens and Lauren Chen. The health freedom advocates like Stu Peters, and the libertarians like Dave Smith. And then, of course, the Godhead, the paleo-conservative Tucker Carlson, without whom this movement would really not be a threat. These people would be largely fringe.
Yes.
But because Tucker Carlson is so influential and so well-connected and has the ear of Donald Trump and Don Trump Jr., these are people that we have to still be aware of.
So just let's break it down. What are they, in fact? Are they classic Republican isolationists who see Israel as somehow dragging America into global wars? Or are they what I guess we used to see with people with tiki torches, the ones at the left say, oh, look, there's anti-Semitism on the right? A combination or something new altogether?
Yeah, it's a combination because these people aren't part of like a unified formal movement.
Right.
Like I said, they come from kind of all different strains of conservatism, but they are all united under this self-declared banner of being America first. They claim to be pro-Trump, MAGA, America first figures. Well, I'm a pro-Trump, America first conservative.
Of course.
And I don't think that they share our values at all. And this is why it's so important to call them out, because they pretend to be something they're not. In fact, they are woke. What makes them woke?
What makes them woke?
One of the things you just pointed out, it's this blind isolationism. Now, what does that mean? We're not talking about the foreign restraint that is advocated by President Trump. That is a noble foreign policy to embrace.
No boots on the ground type of thing.
Course.
No wars.
Yeah, and understanding that a lot of these neoconservative projects in the past have largely failed, and we've sacrificed our troops, and we've wasted a lot of taxpayer money, and we need to be much more vigilant about, our initiatives, geopolitical initiatives abroad, because we have so many problems at home that we need to fix.
Yeah.
This is a policy that I embrace and that people who support President Trump embrace.
Okay.
But there's a difference between foreign restraint and blind isolationism. Idealistic anti-war non-interventionalism. This interventionalism, that's a tough one. It's the same type of anti-war hysteria that we saw on the progressive left with groups like Code Pink, right?
Yes.
These super progressive,
would go to
die in the
Iran
wool
and say
communist groups, right?
And they'd go to Iran and say these people are good guys.
Right. These are the people that ally with all of our enemies, our declared enemies, the people that have said they are enemies of America. Well, the woke right is no different. They believe they have these idealistic notions of like an America utopia, just like the woke left does, where America somehow doesn't live in 2024 and we can pull out our entire economic and or even just
participation in global markets,
participation, and we can somehow hole up and our enemies won't come for us. It's totally myopic.
But then, Karys, at the same time, Tucker Carlson is supposed to be somebody who admires and close to Putin, or there's some relationship there. And so it's not all isolation. It just seems to be very anti-Israel.
Well, it's anti-Israel, but it's also anti-America, because if their prescription, which is isolationism, actually was carried through to the degree that they are pushing it, we would live in a world where China and Iran and Russia were in control. They were ruling. BRICS would be the new, currency, the new order. It would be a new world order. There would be nothing that distinguishes America, internationally. There would be no more America exceptionalism, right? I mean, part of America exceptionalism was not only our Constitution and our love of the First Amendment and free speech, it's also the fact that these smaller democracies around the world who supported us could rely on us if they were aggressed upon by rogue nations. And that, America has to be careful about getting into those conflicts, but sometimes it is in our national interest because it prevents us from eventually having to fight a war on our own our own soil, excuse me. So if we can keep these people at bay that have said that eventually they will come for America, Iran and China.
Well, we don't have to think that far. 9/11 is not something they look back and say, well, this is what happens when you leave the playing field.
Well, that's a good question, and actually points to another element of the woke right, which is that they are conspiratorial. So they have a lot of theories about 9/11 and about America being involved in 9/11, just like you kind of see on certain factions of the left.
Or the Jews and the Mossad, right? I've heard those too.
Exactly. It's exactly. And, I think that in one sense, I actually have compassion for these people, because when it comes to their conspiracy theories, because I was very much part of, I guess, what you would call like a health freedom movement during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of scandals that people like me were trying to talk about just get shot down by the mainstream media. And we were just called far-right conspiracy theorists, whether it was the lab leak origin of COVID, and then, other political scandals during that time, like Russiagate and Hunter Biden, and a lot of stuff that they lied about regarding January 6th. There was a whole bunch of stuff. And just to shut us down and keep us on the fringe, we were all called conspiracy theorists. And it's like, well, all these conspiracies turned out to be true. And now there's a lot of people that have admitted that they're true, that in the beginning were the ones that were trying to stifle free speech. So it's understandable that these people have gotten so black-pilled, if you will. They're so bitter that everything just seems like a conspiracy to them now. And that's like their entire mode of thinking. But the problem with that is if you're not discerning about the actual individual elements that you are calling conspiracies, eventually you get to the Holocaust. Yeah. And that's what we see. That's what we see with Candace Owens and Stu Peters and Myron Gaines and Jake Shields, all these people. It's
what are they saying?
They're saying everything from Of course, everything from it wasn't 6 million Jews to the Jews brought it on themselves. I mean, there's just Candace's famous blood libel, that the reason why people didn't like the Jews in Germany was because there was actually Christian children that were going missing and they were being kidnapped by the Jews. I mean, and it's so funny.
Such a typical blood libel from hundreds of years. Like, she's not even original.
And I know. But then I was just going to say, and they all say these things like they're so original. Like, have you guys seen the Talmud? It's actually so demonic.
Yes.
Like, they're the first people. Like, it's just it's so funny, right?
They're originals.
Right, yeah. So, the whole 9/11 thing, I mean, there's a lot of elements to this. And I think that the revisionist history is one element that is another feature of what makes them woke, just like the left, right? The left likes to flip history on its head. They had the infamous 1619 Project, which tried to pretend that American history didn't start in 1776. It really started in 1619 because of slavery, and these people want to, they tear down the statues of Abraham Lincoln and Gandhi and Martin Luther King, Well, the woke right does the same thing, just like we saw Daryl Cooper giving a completely revisionist history of World War II on Tucker Carlson's show. They come on and they take elements of history that are so fundamental to the rise of America and the rise of the West as kind of the global order. And they flip them upside down. They pretend that black is white and white is black. And look, there's no problem with relitigating history and trying to say, actually Winston Churchill, he wasn't some saint. He actually had his flaws. Here are his flaws.
Nobody's perfect.
And Martin Luther King, he was actually kind of a womanizer. There's no problem with dispassionately critiquing these people. But that's not what the woke right is doing. The woke right comes in with a wrecking ball.
It's delegitimizing everything.
Exactly. They're delegitimizing and they're demonizing these people, and they're saying they're actually the bad guys.
Yeah.
And the good guys, just like we saw 2 days ago on another episode of Tucker Carlson's show when he interviewed Jeffrey Sachs, who is a CCP propagandist, the good guys are actually Assad, apparently, and China and Iran. I mean, when Dave Smith tweets, guys, Iran is not the enemy here. Iran is not America's
the
enemy
to these people.
Jews.
Really?
And
why?
Israel.
Because we're globalists? What do they see Jews
They
as?
see us as everything. I mean, to Dan Bilzerian, Jewish supremacy is the biggest threat to world peace. I mean, they're taking every single medieval trope. Every single anti-Semitic trope that exists, and they're rehashing
Karys,
it.
You're worried because Tucker Carlson, let's say he's the most influential of all, and the others are just fringe people that would be nothing without him.
Right.
And not even that clever, let's be honest. But he's the smartest and he's the most influential. You are concerned that he would affect or have an effect on the Trump administration now coming in?
Well, I was very worried before Trump announced his recent appointments that Tucker would.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, and this was actually not a secret, that Tucker was trying to dissuade Trump from appointing Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, right? Because
he's
according to the woke right, he is a Israel first neoconservative. Right? There's no, just like the woke left demonizes there's no one worse than white people, white males and Zionists, right?
Yeah.
They have their figures that they demonize.
Yes.
The woke right does the same thing with Zionists and neoconservatives. There's no one worse. They demonize anyone who they consider a Zionist or a neoconservative, or even somebody who's like, I guess there's not a word for it, but somebody who would advocate for a victorious Ukraine, like a pro-Zelensky figure. So those people are the evil enemies to the woke right. And so I think that I was worried at the beginning. My fears were assuaged.
Right. Because all the cabinet, let's be honest, there's nobody there really that we should have a problem with. Thank God.
Thank God.
Maybe he does have the right people talking in his ear.
Exactly. So I think we're good for now, and I don't want to, I'm coming on here talking about this, but I've spent, the last 15 years of my life talking about the threat of anti-Semitism on the left.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make a bigger deal of this than it is, but it's so important that people are aware that it exists.
Yes.
Because if we pretend that, especially people like myself that are pro-Trump, America first, conservatives, if people like us pretend that the woke right shares our values and our ideology, then we are going to legitimize them. And they are welcome to say whatever they want. I'm a big fan of free speech and Elon Musk taking over Twitter, even though there's a lot more anti-Semites and a lot more trolls. Fine. I'm not one of those people that we can debate about that. I'm not one of those people that says we should censor them. But let's not pretend like these people are conservative, are Trump conservatives. Let them go where they are most welcome, which is actually with the left. This is why they have self-declared communists like Jackson Hinkle as guests on their show, Chomsky acolytes like Glenn Greenwald. He's a favorite of theirs. And as we just saw 2 days ago, CCP pro-UN globalists like Jeffrey Sachs on their shows. These are the people that they endorse and they come and they talk to. And it's great to talk with people who have differing views, but it's not like these people are united by any sort of like positive message. They're bringing these leftists on because they're united in their hatred of Zionists and of neocons. That's it. That's the only thing that they're bonded over.
What would they consider a neocon? What's a neocon?
Well, they consider a lot of Trump's appointments neocons.
Right. And that means that they're not conservative enough, or they're not.
I think I'm not sure if they would argue that they're not conservative, but I think that they would say that they're certainly not
America first people?
Certainly not America first. Right. Absolutely. They would definitely argue that. Lindsey Graham is a favorite punching bag of theirs, Nikki Haley. And like I said, I'm not a neoconservative. I think that there is something to the foreign restraint and re-examining our failed policies over the years. Look, I mean, look at the problem of jihadism. Like we tried to contain that with the war on terror. It's no secret that we haven't done that great a job of it. So it's important to understand, what we did wrong and learn from it.
Yeah.
And a lot of money has been wasted on these foreign wars. So but that doesn't mean that these people are intrinsically evil for advocating maybe a failed foreign policy.
Yeah.
I mean, to the woke right, these people just recklessly throw around these words like war hawk and warmonger and Jewish supremacist, just like the left does, right? If you advocate for Ukraine to win the war, you are a war hawk. I mean, it's so reckless, and it really is the same strategy.
Who started
of the left.
The war, which is Putin,
of course.
He's fine,
right? Because it comes back to what I'm saying, which is that fundamentally these people don't actually love America.
Yeah,
they believe they believe our enemies should be ruling America.
Really?
Iran, Russia, China,
they believe that
and all of their
should be
minions
ruling America.
Well, you just
America
said
should
it.
Just be left alone.
I think that they would probably say that America should be left alone. However, they will also tell you that despite Iran declaring itself an enemy of America. No, Iran's not an enemy. Despite China having a literal 100-year plan to take over America, they will say, no, it's not China, right? No, it's not Assad. I mean, Tucker Carlson 2 days ago literally sat there with his arms crossed, and he's like, so I'm supposed to believe that Assad is this evil dictator? That's just so crazy.
Killing 500,000 of your own people apparently is not enough. To be an evil dictator.
Yesterday morning, we just discovered a mass grave with 100,000 people in one grave. And Tucker Carlson claims to be so concerned with casualties. He's always talking about like the death of innocent civilians and the horrors of war.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it says something that these people, maybe they won't say it outright, that they support America's enemies, but there is no other conclusion that we can draw when they literally are refusing to listen to them. And they will pay lip service to Putin because he's anti-woke, but they won't acknowledge that we don't live in a vacuum. Putin's biggest allies are China and Russia.
And Turkey,
and Iran.
Yeah, and Iraq.
Right, yeah, and everyone else. All the communists. Who are all the communist states aligning with? Who is Venezuela and Cuba and Colombia now and Chile? Who are all of these states aligning with? They are aligning with Iran, China, Russia. And yet the communists are, Candace and all these people, all these figures in the woke right, they claim to be anti-communist, anti-Marxist, anti-globalist.
But they talk exactly like that.
they support the people that literally have embraced those policies. So
Karys, what can we do? I mean, who affects these people, their audiences? These people are essentially on their own. Tucker Carlson left a major network and set up on his own, on X, I think. People sit on his show. He's a legitimate, to many people, to most people, is a legitimate host of his own show. He's very popular.
Yeah.
And yet he's spouting out this poison, propping up dictators and hating on the Jews.
Right.
What do we do?
Well, it depends who you are. I mean, if you have influence, really, I mean, if you are J.D. Vance, you need to not welcome these people into our movement.
Yeah.
You know, there's sort of, I'm not sure if they are just not aware or if there's a denial among some America First people, but I think they're really pretending like this isn't an issue. And it might be because
it's not too marginal for it to be said to be an issue. You're saying it's actually dangerous.
Well, because of Tucker and because of the millions of tens of millions of cumulative followers that these people have. Yeah. I mean, someone like Dan Bilzerian, millions of followers. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
he was a nothing. He's a marginal bottom feeder.
No, these people are shaping public opinion, and they're trying to reshape the conservative party in their image, just like the progressive neo-Marxist left tried to reshape the Democratic Party in their
they haven't done a bad job of.
Right. And so they're amassing these tens of millions of followers. They're shaping public opinion. They're turning people over to converting people into like anti-Zionism. And I think if you are somebody like, you know, J.D. Vance or Donald Trump, like you need to be very clear that like while America First respects differing opinions, we're not going to hand the torch over to somebody with different values and say that they're still America First. This is about values and ideology. Yeah. So we can disagree on, you know, policies and stuff like that. But if you fundamentally don't stand for a strong and successful America and Israel,
a leader, also America as a world leader,
then we're not going to call you an America First conservative.
No.
So if you have influence, like it's time to start talking out about it, especially like if you are friends with people of influence, you need to say, like, I would love to grab a beer with J.D. Vance and say, hey, what's up with Tucker going to that globalist conference in Dubai last February and railing about how America was basically this like imperialistic hegemon and responsible for all these problems in the Middle East? You know, like, have you ever heard of that? You know, like, because maybe they just don't know. Because Tucker is very, I mean, look, my friend told me that at Mar-a-Lago a few weeks ago, Tucker was there, you know, with, I think Trump was there and a lot of other people, and everybody on stage had a hostage pin, including Tucker. So what is going on here? What is happening is that Tucker is an opportunist, right? He wants to share, he wants to
get close to Trump.
Exactly. He wants to have that power. He wants to have that influence. So he's not going to rock the boat when he's in front of those people. But when he has his own platform, he's going to say the most inflammatory and toxic things that are so so antithetical to what America First stands for. So people need to be not afraid to call these people out. Yeah. They need to not be afraid to have these conversations. Otherwise,
and
like
really
who knows?
Them for what they are.
Yeah, because it took a long time for the Republican Party to kind of reckon with you know the fascistic elements within it, and we've done a great job at pushing the white supremacists to the fringes. They really don't exist within our party. They're not welcome within our party, and if we're not careful, then you know in 20 years the parties might flip again. Who knows?
Wow.
It might be the conservative party that is the anti-Semitic party.
You know, I think we all kind of had an awareness of what you're talking about, but you've really told us a very concerning tale here about what's going on and how this is actually a movement. What you're saying is it's one guy leading a movement of these bottom feeders. Half of them don't have the brains he does, but he's smart enough to be pushing them in a very dangerous path for America. And ultimately, a strong America needs a strong Israel, and I think that's what they're missing, essentially. That we are that outpost of freedom in a region where there is none, and we are also protecting American interests with our kids
Of
and
course.
our boots without having to use their
Of course.
boots.
They freak out about this, what is it, $3.8 billion in aid. It's not really aid.
No,
but
no,
it's
we
like
buy it from them. It's industry.
Of course. And also it provides tens of thousands of Americans with jobs. Do they want to go to Boston and be like, sorry, guys, like you don't have a job anymore? Because, I mean, it's like they're so big about, American manufacturing. Now, granted, they're also very wary, understandably, of the military-industrial conflicts. I understand that has to be scaled down. But like, have they not just looked around and been like, oh, wait, we don't have any boots on the ground in Israel. That's interesting.
Or anywhere in the Middle East anymore.
It's like we still are in South Korea. We're still in Europe. We still haven't left Germany after World War II, right? So yeah, maybe there's this a significant sum of money going to Israel, but you have to measure that against other forms of other resources that America expends. Money's not the only resource. There's also manpower, And the money's kind of a drop in the bucket when you think about the fact that we don't need to have any boots on the ground there. And since America and Israel have the same enemies, which the woke right would probably deny, but that's so myopic. Since we have the same enemies in Iran and Russia and China, Israel is actually, could be argued as fighting America's wars, not the other way around.
100%.
And in my opinion, whatever money that we give to Israel, like the return in investment is substantial. I mean,
not to mention the fact that we make American technology better.
I was just
and
going to
then
say
give
that.
it back to them.
I was just going to say that. Friedman always makes that argument. I had him on my show recently, and he said, what happens is America will build these F-35s. We don't fly them in combat. Israel will buy them. They'll make them better.
Yeah,
they'll realize what's wrong with them, and then they'll give all the technology back to America.
Absolutely.
So and look, the debate about aid. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, if you say we shouldn't be sending aid to Israel, then you're anti-Zionist or you're anti. No, there's plenty. This is a good faith debate. There's people that I so respect, Liel Leibovitz and Jacob Siegel, who
also
talk about this.
For our sake.
Of course, for your sake. You guys don't want to be dependent on America.
Yes,
you want to be able to. You want to be able to procure your own weaponry on your own soil. If October 7th if we've learned anything from that, that's one of the things we've learned. We've 100%. Seen Biden dangle these necessary armaments, over Israel's eyes, and it's actually on the ground hurt our mission.
Absolutely.
So that's a good faith debate to be had.
Absolutely.
But it needs to be had in good faith, not bad faith.
Wow, Karys, you've really opened our eyes up to, yet another problem. And I guess the moral of the story is that extremes on both sides always meet on one thing, and that is the hatred of Jews. Yes. We saw it with fascism and communism. We see it with all sorts of different extremes. We see it with the progressives and the Islamists who couldn't have anything in common except the hatred of Jews and the destruction of Israel. And now we have another one to worry about. Not only do we have the woke left that has poisoned academia, poisoned the media, but now we have to worry about woke right that we pray does not poison this current administration.
Yes.
But thank you really very much for calling out evil where you see it, and keep fighting the good fight. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.